So we are in the live room of Studio A, and I've got Brad Dollar here. He's been our lead recording engineer in this project, and he's going to basically walk us through this amazing drum mic setup we've been using. So,
sure.
Yeah, Brad.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I'm Brad Dollar. I'm head of production engineering, pretty much all things studio life here at Zoo Labs and during the Zoo Labs music residencies. Like Greg said, I've been here at NVO and Studio A for the last 2 days. NVO is a great combination of electronic and acoustic percussion and drums. So it was really important to make sure that we got a really big sound, a really kind of polished, modern sound to fit the electronic drums, but also something like very vibey, something very like, you know, interesting to listen to and fun to listen to. The drum setup, as far as the microphones go, is fairly traditional as far as the amount goes, but I try to like always do something a little bit different. I'll just kind of go around the kit and kind of explain each part, you know, in case you like haven't really seen a mic'd and drum kit in the studio. So firstly, you know, the typical things you want to see mic'd up on a drum kit in the studio are, you know, kick and snare. In this case, starting with the kick, some guys like to build what we call dog houses around the kick to kind of isolate the microphones that are around it to prevent cymbal bleed, to prevent snare drum bleed from getting in there. So this is, you know, really quick attempt at it, sort of blanket over the kick drum. And if you can see, there's in here an AKG D12, which is a classic AKG kick drum mic, with the Beatles used it. And inside is a much newer Audix D6, which is a lot more sub-frequency. The two of them together really help create not just the sound of like a kick drum, but the sound of how the drum actually sounds in the room. So you have a mic with some distance and a mic that's actually inside. So the blanket kind of just covers that up. You can go to town way more than that, build whole like houses and forts around it to really keep the sound isolated. Kind of moving to the snare, that's a Telefunken M81 on the top. The snare has two critical parts, the top and the bottom. So on top of the kind of punch and attack of the snare drum top, you also get the nice rattle coming from the bottom. So we like to put a mic down there to kind of pick up that sizzle. Kind of a classic trick with snare drums is to add tape to them, add different kinds of like gels, things to dampen them so they don't ring or have some kind of flappy sound.
I think the idea in recording is it doesn't have to look pretty.
Yeah, looking pretty is like not something to even be worried about at all. The kick and the snare are probably the most integral and hardest things to get right as far as the sound. They're the loudest usually. But I like how these came out in this recording. I typically don't mic hi-hats, but because of the overall electronic and kind of dance nature of NVO's music, I wanted to make sure that was covered to really enhance it, really make sure that it doesn't get too washy. Hi-hats are the loudest thing on a drum kit, but it's nice to have the detail. So this is actually a dynamic mic. I want something a little chunkier. Yeah, kind of like 70s drum recordings a lot. They would have used that. Moving around the kit are the toms. Typically with toms, we as engineers, you know, that's kind of one of those things you struggle with. Where's the right sound? Is it very close? Is it further away? I like to mic them close. The kind of go-to mic is a Sennheiser 421. You'll see this on drum kits from, you know, today in 2015 until like, you know, 1972, whenever these mics came out.
Awesome.
They're great tom mics. The CDs here on the rack in the middle tom. On the deep floor tom is an AKG D112. Flashback, the outside kick drum mic on this kit is an AKG D12. That floor tom mic, again, is a D112, which is a newer, you know, 80s, 90s kind of re-envisionment of that. So it's a little brighter, sounds different. It's great on floor tom. It's not so thick, it has a lot of detail, but it has a lot of balls too, so sounds good. The other really critical part as far as drum recording goes, even more than the kick and the snare, are the overheads. And that is the pair of mics or single mic that helps relay the overall image and overall picture of what the drums sound like to the listener. Some people like to use one mic. I often use one mic. Sometimes you'll find yourself using four. Very traditionally, you'll see a pair. This is a pair of Neumann U87s, which is a really pretty high-end pair of microphones. Typically, you find them on vocals. Certainly, you see them in orchestras and strings. I think they sound great on drums.
And you mix them in a stereo configuration of sorts?
Yeah, so this is a spaced pair. Sometimes on drum sets, you'll see the overheads very close over the tops just to get the cymbals. Sometimes you'll see them very close in the front just to get the front of the kit. I kind of go back and forth. In this case, there were so many mics in the front of the kit that I wanted to kind of hear what it sounds like behind the kit, which is a little more natural for the drummer, for what the drums actually sound like. So they get a little bit of the room, they get really the sound of the kit, not just the sound of the cymbals, or not just the sound of the drums. It's kind of the overall picture.
So what is this guy doing right here?
I always like to have a mono mic. This can be anything from a very clean sounding single microphone that's kind of near the middle of the drums, just to get the overall picture, kind of like the overheads, but a little more intimate. Or sometimes I just like to make it, well, can I curse? Sometimes I just like to fuck it up and make it sound awesome. Make it sound distorted, blow it out, something like something really special, like an effect to play with while we're recording, while we're mixing. So
great.
This microphone is Telefunken M16. It's a really beautiful, bright sounding tube microphone, really balanced, not too washy. If I had one mic to put on a kit to get everything, I'd probably pick something like this and probably put it somewhere over here. So one thing that is very integral to a microphone is the preamp. And preamp adds voltage, is responsible for a lot of the character that's added to a microphone. I chose to run this through a Neve 1073. When you crank them, you could just distort the crap out of them, make them kind of blown out. It has an EQ on it. You can make it kind of bassy or make it very thin sounding. So I processed this mic like that and blended it in. It just kind of sounds like a trashy filter kind of effect to kind of cut back and forth from, and really just fills out the drums and makes them, you know, a little different. It's really easy to put microphones on a drum kit and make them sound very pretty and, you know, very like, you know, this snare drum is really thick and big and bright, this kick drum is really big and huge, but it's really how the drums all sound together, and a lot of that has to do with the music, a lot of that has to do with the drummer and the room and the microphones, and all these things are important. So I try to look at all that when picking these microphones and making my choices, and it's kind of how I arrived here at this setup with these guys.
Awesome. Now I noticed there's one more mic in the room.
There's one more mic hiding, and I tend to go apeshit with room mics, but in this case, I'm going to again keep it simple. We have a single room mic in the back. It's an AKG C451, very standard small diaphragm condenser. Really simple room mic, just to kind of get some of the ambience. I think that's about it. The other big thing about this setup was, again, the preamps. We had some Telefunken V72s, which are like the Beatles, Abbey Road, very like European vibey preamp. You know, some compressors like LA2As and 1176s. They're both very classic compressors. There's a few of those kinds of processors on the kit, and ran through an SSL console, Apogee Symphony interface for recording, and NVO. I mean, what else do you need for awesome music?
How about a high five?
That was a fucking high five. Yeah. Thanks, guys.